Welcome to the IndieSider podcast, where I play indie games and then interview the developer. I'm your host, Ken Gagnon, and this week I'm playing Cryptark, recently released for PlayStation 4 and also available for Mac, Windows, and Linux via Steam. Cryptark is a game from Alientrap that I've been looking forward to ever since I first played it at PAX East 2016. It's described as a 2D roguelike space shooter. The roguelike quality comes specifically from the rogue mode. The levels are procedurally generated, which means it's a different game every time you play. You basically are going into these giant spaceships, salvaging parts while defeating the systems that are still intact, any sort of intruder alarm systems, and then escaping with your life to sell the parts you found and also equip the alien tech that you discovered. How awesome does that sound? So I'm going to go ahead and play with the default loadout, because I've played this before. Here you get to choose from 4 different derelict ships. A scan on the right tells you what you'll find inside, how many systems there are, how many AIs, how many tech advances you'll find, and also what the difficulty level is of each. So I'm going to go with an easy one to start off of this Let's Play, or this IndieSider podcast. Let's go with the minor. 6 system scans, 4 tech advances, 1 ammo station, no health stations. I'm okay with that. I can survive. Later on in the game, I'll be talking with the art director for this game, Jesse McGibney. He has some fascinating insights into how this game came about and how it's so different from Apotheon, the previous game from Alientrap. That was a game based on Greek mythology, so you can imagine it looks very different. So here's where you can buy different equipment. You can also equip the stuff that you have found in the game. You have a bankroll in the lower right, $500,000. You can also try out your equipment on these targets before you actually leave. I'm going to go ahead and head out and touch my touchpad, and here's a map of the area. And I can zoom in and see there's the alarm system, which I need to destroy before I destroy the core. You always have to shoot the core, remember that. And there's also a shield generator system that I need to destroy. Also to be found in here is a drone factory, a hazard system, spawns mines, will disable all mines simultaneously when destroyed. There is also keys, advanced techs, and in the upper right you can find there are 3 additional goals. No supply pods, don't use repair kits, and don't trip alarms. If I can do all that, I get bonus money. I can also choose a goal, a destination, and it'll automatically plot a course for me to get there. I'm going to start right there. So out here, there's no real background music, because in space, nobody can hear you scream. There's the first bad guys. There are some saw blades I need to avoid here. And here I am. Great. Making it. Excellent. So this is very much like Cybernator, I found, where you're flying around in a giant mech suit, destroying bad guys. Whoa, watch out for these. You have a lot of different weapons, and you do not have infinite ammo. You have to buy more ammo, and you can't go back to your ship once you start the level, which is, in my opinion, kind of annoying, but hey, you do what you got. Alright, how do I open this thing up? I need to destroy the system, but I am not seeming to do any damage. Let's see if maybe I can use a grenade on this. That did nothing. Interesting. So this seems to be somewhat oh my gosh, that's dangerous. So this system seems somewhat impervious for some reason. I don't know how to destroy the mines. That's annoying. Oh, that didn't do anything either. Alright, well in that case, let's go ahead and attack the drone factory. Wow, it wants me to go all the way outside. And that does in fact seem to be one of the quickest routes that avoids quite a few enemies, but also avoids some potential windfalls from alien tech. So here's some right here. I just got a pulsar. So next time I am in my supply ship, I can equip that in place of one of my existing weapons, which is pretty neat. Let's go over here, and there should be another system I can destroy, as well as a key terminal, which will allow me to open some doors later on. So let's go ahead and open this. I probably want to destroy that before it kills me. There's also an alarm right there. You can see that red line is an alarm. If I trip that, all heck breaks loose. Let's go ahead and destroy the alarm system. There we go. Uh-oh. I'm down to 4/10 of my health, also known as 40%. I have some repair kits I can use. I just lost another one by pushing the wrong button here, which also reset the gate here. Open that one more. Great. Now I can destroy that. And that should be the door system is destroyed. So now there are no more locked doors, no more secrets. Let's go get the alien tech over here. Oh, got a heavy machine gun. Piercing. Wonderful. You can also boost a little bit here to help me get by a little bit faster. More alien tech. A flamethrower. Oh, bad guys. Might have to use one of my repair kits soon. I have 2 of them. Let's see. Where do I want to go next? Let's go... Let's see. I need to destroy pretty much every system that still exists. So let's go out of here. This is supposed to be some sort of big enemy right here. Oh, gosh. Ah! I don't like that thing at all. I don't even know what it is. So let's just get out of here. And we should be a little bit freer out here to fly around and make our way to the other side of the ship. Whoa. Let's go this way. By the way, there's a timer. I have 4.5 minutes left to destroy this level. You can see it right above the mini-map in the right. Oops, I almost missed my entrance. That. Good. I have 934 bullets left of my standard gun. I also have a ram spike like that, which I don't use nearly enough. Probably should. Also, a bit of a shield right there. But anyway, in the meantime, let's destroy what's down here. Oh, quite a few enemies down there. Let's just launch a grenade in here. Whoops, that was not a grenade. Oh, I'm nearly dead. So let's go use one of my repair kits. I'm now not going to get a bonus for not using repair kits. Also, don't want to trip that alarm, so I'm avoiding that laser at all costs. Whoops, wrong button. Do that a lot. Oh, come on, that saw me? I protest. I destroyed that, but now probably everything is going to come to find me in the meantime. Yeah, this is not helping. Oh god. Get away, get away. Use another repair kit. Oh god. Get away. Alright. Looks like there's some potentially good stuff over here. So let's stop. Ammo supply pod, I'll take that. Let's grab some tech, grab a key, even though I don't need it anymore. I got a nuke rocket. That sounds like a pretty cool piece of tech. I don't have any health left. Oh god! Why are there so many of these? Perhaps I should have spent more time choosing my loadout before I came here. Whew. Lots of bad guys. Now I have to get through these. Oh, poop. One more hit and I'm dead. And this is not the way I want to go. I need to go up here. Yep, there I go. Now I'm just a little guy in space, and I'm exploded. Wonderful. So my next level will be much more successful. I do get to keep the tech I collected, apparently, but I lose $100,000 for pilot recovery. So the game is not over. I just have less money now, and I move on to the next 4 levels. So while I explore my next derelict ship, I'm going to be speaking with Jesse McGibney. I bought Cryptark for the purpose of this review, and you too can buy it by using the links found at alientrap.com. There are also links to all the resources mentioned in this episode in the show notes found at IndieSider.net/Cryptark. Speaking of which, this is in fact the final episode of IndieSider. 3 years, 61 numbered episodes, 64 total episodes, and it's time to call it a day. This week is in fact the 3-year anniversary of IndieSider, so I decided that's a good time to transition to featuring more indie games, but just with fewer developer interviews on YouTube channel Gamebits. So there will definitely be more gameplay footage to come. If you want to find out why I'm making this transition, go ahead and check out IndieSider.net/theend. Thank you to everybody who has listened for so many years. Here's my interview with Jesse McGibney. Joining me today is the creative director from Alientrap for the latest game Cryptark, that being Jesse McGibney. Hi, Jesse.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Happy with the release so far.
Yeah, I imagine that you must be very busy, you and Lee. The game came out at the time of this recording a week ago for Steam and just yesterday for PlayStation 4. You must be swamped with reviews, tech support, all sorts of kind of different things.
Yeah, definitely keeping an eye on my Twitter feed, just kind of trying to collect all the reviews and Let's Plays and tracking bugs and all that kind of stuff.
Now, you've released many games before. How does this recent release track as far as keeping you busy? Are all designers this busy the week after a game's release?
This one's a little different in that it's our first early access release title. So we were in early access on Steam for about 1.5 years, close to 2 years. So the release is a little smoother. You know, you're not dropping this big bombshell right off the bat and hoping that it all works right off the bat. We've had people playing it for a while, so and getting feedback and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely like a smoother transition in this release. There's not as much unexpected stuff as with some of our previous games.
Do you find that a lot of people were waiting for the game to exit early access before coming on board?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because a lot of people, myself included, we'll see early access games and think they'll look really interesting, but a lot of people have a personal policy of not going into early access titles and waiting for the game to be finished first. So there's definitely a lot of people just kind of chomping at the bit, waiting for the game to come out.
Now, this game has not only been in early access for about a year and a half, it's also been shown at conventions for a while. The first time it came on my radar was when I got my hands on it at PAX East 2016, and I was wowed even back then. How did you know when it was ready to show at conventions, when it was not too early to be debuting it?
So we had this game kind of put together pretty quickly. I think within about 6 months since I started prototyping it. We had a pretty good kind of gameplay loop and played the campaign and a pretty good art setup. So it came together as a game very quickly. We were pretty confident that it would show well on show floors, kind of right off the bat. And then obviously most of the work is just polishing it and refining it and optimizing it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we were pretty confident early on that it would play well to the public.
And that held true as you showed it at different conventions like PAX? It was well received?
Yeah, definitely. People tend to pick it up pretty quickly. That kind of robust set of systems of picking and choosing what objectives you want to give yourself in order to make the level easier and all that kind of stuff. And it's a top-down shooter, so a lot of people were very comfortable jumping in, shooting robots if nothing else. It was very easy to pick up and play.
What other games were inspirational to you in creating this? Because I see a lot of potential different influences from games like Cybernator or even Asteroids, if you want to go way back, or even maybe movies like Alien, for example. What was it that you were looking to when creating Cryptark?
Yeah, definitely. For games, a lot of shoot 'em ups and bullet hell type games that we're looking at tended to be more first-person games, I think, like Doom and Quake and that level of gunplay and moving and dodging projectiles and stuff like that. I definitely did look at Cybernator and some of those older 2D games where you're playing a mech suit flying in space. They're definitely interesting to look at to see how they tackle the same kind of setting. And then in terms of other media, yeah, definitely like Geiger's Aliens and Warhammer 40,000, I think the Space Hulk, the whole idea of infiltrating these giant spaceships and taking over defenses. In terms of gameplay, we were looking a little bit at things like Far Cry with the outpost systems, and that those are all these kind of micro levels of roll up on a hill and see this kind of fortress and then take a little plan and see how you're going to go in and take out all the defenses to take down the outpost. Sort of like the feeling that we're going for with Cryptark.
It's a very different kind of game from your previous title, Apotheon, which was also 2D, but more of a Metroidvania based on ancient Greek pottery and mythology. How did you go from existing in ancient Greece to the far-flung future? That seems like a dramatic departure.
Yeah, so each game that we make, and this is our third kind of big 2D game, each one is kind of a 180-degree departure from the previous lessons we've learned, whereas Apotheon was this big, sprawling, open-world action RPG, and the art for that was very Greek pottery, but made to be easily tileable and set up in such a way that you can make really big levels and stuff out of it. And then with Cryptark, we wanted to do something where I didn't have to make levels, because all the levels in Apotheon were handmade. And it took forever. So we wanted to do something that was, nice and procedurally generated, and the art style ended up being a little closer to my own, personal kind of comic art style. And yeah, so it was a different set of problems that we wanted to solve, and all the artwork and gameplay mechanics were kind of based around that. How to make levels modular so that we can procedurally generate them. Even things like the fact that it's in space. One of the big problems we had with Apotheon was just basic enemy pathfinding. Getting an enemy AI to work in a 2D platformer where they're having to jump and climb and keep up with the player in this very complex world with gravity, it's really hard to do. So with Cryptark, kind of like, how do we solve that problem? Well, let's just not have gravity for this one. So all the enemies fly. Don't have to worry about jumping and missing and climbing up ledges. They can just fly after the player. So setting it in space became an obvious setting for that problem.
It almost sounds like by eliminating gravity and by going with procedurally generated levels, you don't have to create handcrafted levels, that all the problems you were solving were designed to make your life easier.
Right, but then of course it also spawns a whole new set of problems that all the stuff that comes with procedural generation levels. Levels being having weird dead ends and impossible doorways and all that kind of stuff that is always going to be a problem and has to require a lot of testing in order to fix. Yeah, so it's always a 180 shift to try and make our lives easier, and then learning a whole new set of problems. And the next game will inevitably another 180-degree shift into something totally different.
So what problems did you have this time that you hope to resolve next time? Are you going to go back to handcrafted levels, or maybe a mix of that with procedurally generated?
I think we want to do kind of a mix between the two, where instead of these wholly complete modular blocks that are linking together into this one complete maze, something, a nice balance between the two of kind of handcrafted areas that are, easily identifiable and they look visually distinct from each other, but then maybe laid out in a way that is randomized each playthrough would be something I'd like to see.
So in the meantime, there were a lot of other decisions you made in this game. You mentioned how the art style between this and your previous game were very different. And even within this game, there are a couple of different art styles at play. There is the real hard, cold metal of space with all the aliens and robots, but then there's also the cutscenes and the character portraits during communications, which are quite different from the rest of the game. Why is there that divide within one game?
Right. I kind of wanted that divide to be a little bit of kind of a nice levity break. A big part of roguelites, and this one in particular, is it's very stressful once you're playing the level. It's very intense. And having to plan a lot and think a lot and react a lot and fight a lot of enemies all the time. And the art kind of reflects that. It's very skeletal and claustrophobic, and you're fighting these skeleton monsters. So that when you're finished the level, I wanted to kind of give the player a chance to breathe and catch their breath and take a little break between levels. And the character design just kind of reflected that, where it's just something to set the gameplay apart from the narrative.
Would you say one of those styles is more your forte than the other?
Not necessarily. I tend to switch between a lot of styles. Just because I'm working on so many different projects at once, I don't really have a distinct set style. I like drawing monsters and guns and stuff like that. Draw monsters and guns. And actually, aside from the kind of fancy 3D normal mapping effects that are going on in game, the art style in terms of the characters and the design of the enemies and stuff is actually fairly similar technically in how it's executed.
I really liked the breakdown you gave on Gamma Sutra about the various lighting effects that you used and how in space nobody can hear you scream, but they can certainly see you scream, and there are so many different explosions and lasers and alarms being triggered throughout these various artifacts and cryptarks that the lighting is really quite dynamic and interesting.
Yeah, that was something I really wanted to go ahead with this project. In our previous games, we learned a lot about how dynamic and colored and all these level lights can really help add a sense of tone and variation between different areas of the game. And I really wanted to push that forward more with Cryptark, in that we have these normal map assets where everything reacts differently to different dynamic lighting. So you'll shine the flashlight on a wall, and it'll kind of show the planes of the objects that they made it a 3D, but they're actually all hand-painted normal maps to kind of fit in with the comic style.
And complementing all the art design that you've done is also a pretty intense soundtrack. What was it like working with Ryan Roth and Ryan Henwood to produce that part of the game?
Right, yeah, they were great. Pretty straightforward. We had I think some 9 Inch Nails or something as placeholder music when we first put that in the game. And we got in touch with both the Ryans early on in development. We knew them from Toronto. They're local, and they worked on a bunch of other indie projects as well. We kind of sat down with them and went, just kind of feeling this kind of, industrial rock sort of heavy pounding music that goes along with how we think the aesthetic of the game should go. And they went ahead and locked themselves away for a couple days and came back with these really awesome test tracks. And yeah, I just kept on belting those out, and it was great.
You make it sound pretty seamless. You just lock a musician in a box for a few days, and they produce exactly what you want on the first try.
Yeah, well, they know what they're doing. So
I'm curious about some of the technical decisions that went into rolling Cryptark out, and also into designing it. I was playing it primarily first person, but I tried a little bit of the co-op mode, which is a great feature. I love couch play. I love having the person sitting right next to me, being able to yell at each other while we coordinate. That is seemingly atypical nowadays. Most co-ops or multiplayer seems to be either online or, if it's offline, at least split screen. Why the decision to go with single screen local co-op for this game?
a lot of that is designing the game from the start. Incorporate that kind of online play. Before Apotheon, the last game, we knew kind of early on we wanted to have some online multiplayer, and that was actually how we ended up hashing out a lot of the combat systems, was just fighting each other in
While we understand the necessity of
peer-to-peer
emergency supply
online
pods,
games.
it is appreciated when your
For
crew refrains
Cryptark,
from
that
exorbitant
wasn't a big
resource
part of the
expenditure,
game design
Captain.
we wanted going forward, and it's really, it takes a lot of it's a lot of work to actually get online working well, and there's a lot of polish on top of it that just kind of doubles the gameplay, or sorry, the development time. And in terms of local co-op, it has its own set of problems as well, but it's much easier to implement, and you don't have to mess around with online servers and all that kind of stuff. And because Cryptark, it's very not physics heavy, but there's a lot of stuff going on at the same time, and it's very action focused. And getting all that stuff to coordinate seamlessly between two online computers is difficult, especially retroactively going back and add those things in.
I can imagine, even if you had local split screen, the game is so frenetic, as you said, that having twice as much activity split across two halves of the screen, I think would be overwhelming to the players.
Yeah, exactly. And optimizing it for one screen was a challenge in itself.
I can imagine. So you've used a lot of different terms to describe this game, such as roguelite. One term I have not heard used is twin-stick shooter. Is there a reason to avoid that term, or is it just simply inaccurate?
No, I definitely wouldn't say it's inaccurate. I don't know. It just wasn't used in our initial description. I think I went with sci-fi shooter instead of twin-stick shooter. No real reason. just that's the way that I wrote the initial kind of elevator pitch for it.
Because for me, twin-stick shooter evokes such games as Robotron and Smash TV, which are top-down shooters, which I think I may have heard you call Cryptark, but it's also sort of a 2D side-view shooter as well.
Right. And yeah, in terms of gameplay, Cryptark is very much a top-down shooter. You have full 360-degree aiming and movement, and there's no real gravity or anything like that. The reason we went with a side view is that artistically, I find unless the character you're playing as, unless it has a very interesting top-down silhouette, like a vehicle, like a plane or a boat or a tank or something that looks good from the top, it's very hard to design interesting-looking characters. If this was a person looking at it from the top, you're just looking at their head and shoulders, which is very, it looks a little boring, I feel. So one of the things we wanted to go for this was using a side-on view, and that let us keep the same top-down simple shooter mechanics, but have it look much more interesting, I think.
No, that makes perfect sense, and I can see how that would definitely play a role in the design and the art, how you have to marry that with the premise of the game and what perspective the game is supposedly from.
Yeah, definitely.
This other question may be somewhat technical, I don't know if you can address it, but the Steam version of the game came out a week ago at the time of this discussion. The PS4 version came out a week later. They were originally scheduled to come out at the same time. I saw on your Twitter that you said due to an error, the PS4 version had to be delayed. Can you speak to what may have caused that?
Yeah, this was just a mess up on our end. It wasn't anything major or technical. We just happened to get some store assets to Sony on time. Some of the store banner images, I think, and they're real specific on when deadlines need to happen. And yeah, it was just something with all the hubbub that slipped through the cracks, and unfortunately it ended up delaying the game for a week.
Did it have to be delayed exactly a week? Does Sony only publish games on Tuesdays?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly the situations for that, but yeah, they have very specific windows for things.
Okay. One last question, not just about Cryptark, but about Apotheon, your next game, etc. So you've moved your development from XNA to Unity, but one thing you've stuck with is 2D. You tend to be focusing on 2D and the evolution of that art style, if it had continued past when the advent of 3D came along. A lot of 2D games nowadays are pixel art, or they're sort of nostalgic to the original inception of 2D back in the 70s and 80s. You're more focused on what 2D could be and what its potential is. Do you see that continuing? Do you think you'll make the switch to 3D at some point?
Well, we are doing some 3D projects. We have a team, Alientrap, that are working on various projects. So we actually have some other games in early access, particularly for VR. We have a box of VR, which is for 3D. And we have some great 3D artists on that. 2D stuff is mostly my personal preference. I'm a illustrator by trade, so I really enjoy doing 2D art. It's a lot of character and levity and stuff to games. Where 3D is great and I love it and all that kind of stuff, but it's very difficult for a small team to make kind of a great looking 3D game, I feel. Whereas with 2D, you can bring a lot of style and stuff with much lower overhead.
I think it's certainly true that for indie studios, they have to take into account the size of the team and the budget. Certainly those have been growing for Alientrap, which basically just began as you and Lee, and now you have entire teams within your one umbrella. It sounds like Alientrap has been able to really diversify and specialize in a lot of different great projects.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that we kind of settled on early on, I think after our first game, Capsize, was released, is we didn't really have anything ready in the pipe to head onto, so Lee and I were kind of spinning our wheels for about 6 months while we were coming up with Apotheon. So to kind of prevent that lapse from happening again, we're always constantly getting new projects on the go. And, they might not always be in full development all the time, but there's always something for people to jump onto or jump off of or switch over to when their role in another project might be finished or completed or slowing down a bit.
In the meantime, we still have plenty more exploration to do in Cryptark. Do you see yourself releasing any DLC or significant upgrades other than addressing any patches as they arise?
I would like to do, kind of revisit it some, maybe add some content and stuff like that. And that would definitely be another project that we would spin up or something for people to come on and off of. We don't have any set plans at the moment. Let's launch, follow it and all that kind of stuff. But it's definitely something that we'd like to keep in mind.
Well, I look forward to it, just like I've been looking forward to Cryptark for the last year and a half. It was worth the wait, and I'm sure whatever you work on next will similarly be fantastic. In the meantime, remind listeners where they can find Cryptark and whatever you're working on next online.
So they can find what we're working on at alientrap.com and Cryptark, specifically at Cryptark.com.
Excellent, and that is available for PS4 and Steam at this time, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. And it's also, so that Steam version is PC, Mac, and Linux, and it's also available on the Humble Store as well.
Fantastic. There will be links to all those in the show notes found at IndieSider.net/Cryptark. Jesse, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.